Now, British Prime Minister Theresa May is about to fight for her draft divorce deal with the European Union after the resignation of her Brexit secretary and other ministers, which has put her strategy and possibly also her job in jeopardy. Now, May has called a news conference at her Downing Street residence to underline her determination to stay the course. The May has also said that she was in fact sorry at the resignations and also understood their unhappiness, but believed that her deal was the right one. Now, Theresa May has also said that no one has produced an alternative to her Brexit plan as she's fought for her draft EU divorce deal. The May has also ruled out a second referendum on Brexit. British Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has resigned, thrusting Prime Minister Theresa May's government into a bit of a turmoil just 2 days after she clinched an EU divorce deal that was mauled by opponents, allies and also mutinous members of her own party. Raab has said that he'd in fact been fighting for a good Brexit deal, but May's draft had fatal flaws. Meanwhile, reports claim that Michael Gove has also rejected May's offer to be the next Brexit secretary. There were a series of resignations in just the last 24 hours as a fallout of the cabinet nod to the draft deal, including the Pensions Minister Esther McVey. The French First Lady Brigitte Macron visited a high school outside of Paris where she spoke to students about school bullying. Macron, a former teacher herself and a teacher of Emmanuel Macron incidentally, has said that freedom of expression among students is in fact key to diffusing a tense situation, and has also called out a bully usually calms things down. And this month, France's Education Ministry has highlighted this month as an important one in the fight against school bullying, and on the 8th of November had also observed an anti-bullying day and raising awareness across schools and committing to training teachers on how to detect signs of harassment among students and to adequately respond to that. Morocco inaugurated Africa's fastest train, which will halve the travelling time between the commercial and the industrial hubs of Casablanca and Tangier. After 7 years of work on the high-speed railway line, King Mohammed VI and French President Emmanuel Macron boarded the train for the inaugural trip from Tangier to the capital Rabat. Now, the train was tested at a speed of 357 kilometers per hour and is planned to run at an average of 320 kilometers per hour. That will more than half the time of about 200 kilometers between Casablanca and Tangier to around just 2 hours. Seven United Nations peacekeepers were killed in an operation against a rebel militia in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. 10 other peacekeeping troops were also wounded, and another person is said to be missing after the operation. According to the United Nations, several Congolese were also killed or wounded in the joint operation. He said that the deaths mark the biggest loss by the large United Nations force in the Democratic Republic of Congo since the rebels killed 15 troops nearly about a year ago. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has supervised the testing of a new high-tech weapon. According to the North Korean state media, Kim Jong-un has inspected the weapon at Pyongyang's Academy of National Defense Science. The state media has claimed that the so-called high-tech tactical weapon was developed over a long period of time. Remember, Kim Jong-un had signed a document on denuclearization during a historic summit with US President Donald Trump in Singapore earlier this year. Now, 2 attempts of attack with homemade explosive devices were recorded in the last hours in Buenos Aires at a time when the world observes the security measures of Argentina ahead of the summit of leaders of the G20 that will be held at the end of the month in the capital. Now, according to reports that have come in, at least 12 people have been arrested, and on Wednesday night a homemade explosive was also found which did not detonate in the home of the federal judge Claudio Bernardio, while another device exploded in a cemetery where the remains of a commissioner killed by an anarchy in the 1909 unrest. U.S. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi claims that she has the vote to retake the speakership of the House of Representatives. Her claims, in fact, come despite a string of critics within her party who have said that they will oppose her bid. She's also told reporters that she is the best person for the job of the Speaker and has overwhelming support in the caucus. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister has said that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi, remember, had been a royal insider who later turned critic following the policies of the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He was killed in the country's Istanbul consulate on the 2nd of October after a struggle and a lethal injection. The Yemenis in the battle-scarred port city of Hodeidah had a brief respite on Thursday as the port city remained calm. Armed men roamed the streets of the rebel-held city on pickup trucks and motorbikes, some carrying rocket-propelled grenades as civilians tried to go about their lives. Amid the political and the economic crisis in Venezuela, Venezuelans held a protest in Caracas to demand the release of the political prisoners. The protest comes as the opposition leader Juan Requesens remains isolated in a cell without ventilation 100 days after being arrested for an alleged attack against the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. According to the NGO Penal Forum, as many as about 235 political prisoners are held in the country.
Este país adelante. El momento viendo cada uno de nosotros, que también es una porque así vamos para la siguiente actividad en el marco de los 10 minutos por la libertad.
Thousands of Peruvians marched in Lima to protest against charges of changes to gender education in the country that church groups have said will blur the lines between males and females. LGBTQ activists faced off with the church in the protest in Lima, with the security forces having to intervene to break up any altercations. Earlier this year, Peru's government had supported a new gender education standard which presses home the message of equality between men and women and also educates people against violence against women. The thousands protested in Prague against the Czech Prime Minister Andreas Babis after his son said that he was in fact forcibly sent abroad to thwart a fraud inquiry into his father. The Prime Minister Babis, a former communist, is in fact facing criminal charges over the alleged EU subsidy fraud, as well as allegations that he had collaborated with the secret police in the 1980s when former Czechoslovakia was under Moscow's control. His son from his first marriage has told the Czech media that he was in fact sent abroad against his wishes to hinder the fraud probe, prompting the opposition parties to unite in seeking a no-confidence motion against Bibi's cabinet. Rasma Mansoor, the wife of the former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak, has been charged with 2 counts of graft. Mansoor is in fact accused of soliciting and receiving bribes involving a sum of almost about $45 million to help a company secure a government project. Najib and his wife are at the center of wide-ranging graft investigation that has been started by Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who has returned to power after his election in the month of May earlier this year. Sri Lanka's President Maithripala Sirisena has urged the Speaker of the Parliament, Karu Jayasuriya, and also some political parties to seek for a fresh no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, whom he appointed last month, creating political instability in the South Asian country. The Lankan Parliament on Wednesday passed a no-confidence motion, remember, against Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and his government, with the backing of 122 of the 225 lawmakers in a voice vote. This was also followed by a signing of a document which pledged support to Ranil Wickremesinghe. However, the President has rejected the view of the Parliament and has called for a new motion to be held on Friday. Bangladesh says that it has scrapped plans to begin repatriation of the Rohingyas. Bangladesh has also said that it has not been able to find any Rohingyas who are willing to go back to Myanmar. On Thursday, hundreds of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh protested against any attempt to send them back into Myanmar without any guarantees. Bangladesh begun the preparations to repatriate an initial batch of as many as about 2,200 Rohingyas back into Myanmar. Hundreds of people in Pakistan protested against the release of Asia Bibi, a Pakistani Christian woman who was on death row for almost about 8 years on charges of blasphemy. Now, since the Supreme Court has overturned Bibi's conviction last month, Pakistan has in fact been rattled by violent protests from the Islamists who are calling for her beheading, and they're also calling for mutiny in the armed forces and also for the murder of the country's top judges. The cyclonic storm Gaja has made a landfall in Nagapattinam district along the coast of Tamil Nadu with a wind speed of almost about 110 kilometers per hour. Educational institutions in 7 districts have been ordered to be shut today in view of the severity of the storm. Heavy to very heavy rainfall is likely to take place in Tamil Nadu, including in districts of Kadalur, Nagapattinam, Thiruvarur, Tanjavur, amongst others. As many as about 76,000 people have been evacuated and have been shifted to relief centers in 6 districts. Now, the first winter storm of the United States began dumping snow and also freezing rain, leaving Central Park and Times Square coated in snow. Now, the storm, which the U.S. Weather Service says will span from the Ohio Valley to the Mid-Atlantic, may eventually bring over a foot of snow in parts of Pennsylvania and New York. Now, the agency have also said that the worst of the storm will remain to the west of New York City. New York City is likely to see only about 1 to 3 inches before the storm turns into rain. The weather forecasters have said that New York area may in fact expect a snowier than usual winter this year.